Good afternoon, and welcome to the Groveland Council on Aging monthly or every other month Ladies' Tea. My name is Lynn Stanton. I'm the director here. The program today was brought to you through the efforts of Nisha Burke, our beloved program coordinator, assisted by our outreach worker, Vanessa Carmen. Woohoo, a shout out for their kindness. Today's program is going to be called Chocolate, the Perfect Drug. And we have with us this afternoon Dr. Michael Cross to give the program. Thank you.
That's nice. I normally don't get applause when I'm in class. So I teach chemistry and laboratory science over at Northern Essex Community College here in Haverhill, nice and close. And I thought we'd talk a little bit about chocolate. How many of you like chocolate? Oh. All right, excellent. I always have one or two people that are like, no, and I'm like, what's wrong with you? All right, so besides my love of chocolate, I also like really bad magic tricks. So I do need actually two volunteers for this one. You don't even have to get up. You can stay exactly where you are. I'll come to you. All right, perfect. All right, perfect. So if you talk to my wife, she'll tell you that I'm a bit of a cheapskate. So I bought this great deck of cards. It was half price, right? Problem is has some problems with it, obviously. So if we want to play, a game of Texas Hold'em or something, we're going to need to put these together, right? So I'm going to make you ladies do it. If that's all right. So, do you have any psychic powers I should know about? Oh, okay, all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and let you choose a card, okay? I have to do it face down because otherwise you'll say like, oh, choose the, three of diamonds, and then she'd obviously choose the three of diamonds. So just take any finger, preferably yours, and just, that one? Okay. So you go ahead and take it. Don't show it to anybody else, yeah? Okay. And then we'll take the other half of the deck, and we'll do the same thing. All right, so I'll let you go ahead and choose any cards you want. We'll do it face down. That one okay? All right, so there we go. So now go ahead and show everyone what card you chose. Me? Sure. Ace of Spades. And we have the other Ace of Spades, right? That's pretty good. So we do this 51 more times, to get a game of poker going on, right?
And I thought I had a good card.
All right. So, this is perfect. I always like to, have people that are a little bit psychic but may not know it to start out the magic. So it turns out that with this trick, we're trying to bring two things together, two halves of a card, right? With chocolate, we all know about kind of the downside of it, right? Oh, I have to worry about weight gain and things like that. But what about some of the positive aspects that you might read about in magazines? So that's what we're hopefully going to do today is bring together both the positive and the negative so we can get a better picture at what chocolate is, right? Now, to start, I thought we'd do a little bit of history on chocolate itself, right? So chocolate comes from a tree known as the Theobroma cocoa tree, which literally means food of the gods in Latin. So someone knew what they were talking about when they were naming the chocolate tree. In about 1900 BC, we have the first recorded use of chocolate. Back then, it wasn't, a Cadbury cream egg or a nice Hershey's bar. Instead, they would crush the seeds, which actually it looked like this. If you've ever seen cocoa beans. Kind of look like this. So you'd crush these and then they'd make these into a really bitter, spicy drink. They'd add a lot of chili to it, maybe a little bit of vanilla, and then they'd drink it, kind of hot cocoa. The problem is they didn't know anything about sugar, and so it wasn't sweet at all. Now, in about 8300, the Mayans actually used cocoa beans as currency, right? Just like the Oompa Loompas, my kids will tell you, and Willy Wonka. So they would use this as currency, and it also had a very important use in their marriage ceremonies. They believed that the cocoa pods represented life and fertility, and so they would actually, the lucky couple would exchange cocoa beans. They would symbolically drink from the same cup of this hot chocolate drink, and this was how they started their marriage together. That sounds like much nicer than getting a toaster or something at a wedding reception. Now, the Aztecs come along, and as the Aztecs do, they sweep in, they take over everyone in their path, and they actually also, like this chocolate, and so they would expect cocoa beans as tribute or as taxes from the people that they had conquered. Now, they believed that Quetzalcoatl had actually brought a cocoa tree down from paradise. Okay, well, that sounds kind of nice, right? Bringing chocolate to earth. Now, again, they use these as currency. They also use this kind of money. This is some Aztec currency. It's made of brass. This is a lot harder to carry around than cocoa beans, although you wouldn't be tempted to snack on one of these, which would be kind of hard if you get out your wallet and you're like, well, I'm a little hungry. You start eating the money. So, well, what did they do with this? Well, they actually would use it in all different kinds of ways. They would use it as currency. They would also use the cocoa butter itself to protect their skin. You'll notice that a lot of the fancy skin creams nowadays will say made with cocoa butter. Yeah, same basic idea as the Aztecs. Now, it turns out though that cocoa butter is the fat that you press from the cocoa beans. How many of you like white chocolate? I love white chocolate. Yeah, the bad news is that white chocolate isn't even chocolate. Turns out that they use the cocoa butter and that's it. So there's no actual cocoa in it, just cocoa butter. But that means that you could just take that white chocolate bar and just rub it on your skin, and maybe get attacked by ants or bees when you go outside. All right, so we have our Aztecs, and then this guy, Christopher Columbus, comes along and lands in what is now Nicaragua, and he, quote unquote, discovers chocolate, takes it back to Spain. They weren't terribly impressed with it. Mostly because it was very spicy, a lot of chili, a lot of Jamaican allspice, all these different things that they would put in the chocolate drink. And it wasn't until someone realized, wait a minute, we could take out the chili, we could add in like sugar, and then suddenly the chocolate craze begins, and it sweeps the Europe and all over, right? Turns out that nowadays, actually, there's been a revival of the chili. If you go to Lindt, they have the chili pepper kind. It has just a little bit of that hot spice to it. It's still kind of interesting, but we still like our sugar, obviously. We don't want that bitter drink. Now, as you can see, Christopher Columbus liked a lot of chocolate. He's got a little indigestion there, like I didn't too much. But, so the first chocolate was obviously dark chocolate. Right? Later, in about 1839, milk chocolate's produced, okay, and that's made by Cadbury's. And then in 1930, white chocolate is invented by Nestle. Now, I love all kinds of chocolate, so, but turns out that when we talk about some of the health benefits, we're going to be focusing on the dark chocolate. The darker, the better. And then milk chocolate still has some of those same benefits. White chocolate, unfortunately, none of the benefits because it's just, the fat from it. Although it still tastes mighty good. So, well, what do we do with chocolate? Well, it turns out that in World War II, over 3 billion chocolate D ration bars, they look kind of like this, were given to soldiers as part of their emergency rations. Now, I've heard that these aren't very tasty. They're designed to taste about as good as a boiled potato. Not much flavor, because they didn't want the soldiers dipping into their emergency rations and eating it. The other downside was that sometimes the soldiers would call these Hitler's secret weapon because of the effect it would have on their gastrointestinal tract when they would eat these. So I heard that not many of these were actually eaten, but Hershey's was actually presented with the Army-Navy E Award 5 different times, and each of their employees was given one of these little E pins to commemorate their efforts in the war, to actually, this benefit that they had, given to the Allies by producing all of these billions of chocolate bars. Now, besides having these in, the emergency rations, astronauts still take chocolate into space. Every single American and Russian voyage has involved chocolate, mostly so they can throw M&Ms around while they're in space and see them floating around, probably. But it tastes good. The average American eats about 11 pounds of chocolate every year.
That's all.
Yeah, right. You're like me, you're one of those that brings up the average, right? It's because there are those few people that are allergic, they don't eat anything, and so some of us have to band together to help, stimulate the economy, right? By eating the chocolate. And it turns out that chocolate also invented the microwave. There's a little help from a guy named Percy Spencer. Now, what had happened was he had a chocolate bar in his front pocket. He goes into work on the magnetrons that they'd been using for radar, and suddenly he noticed that his chocolate bar was melting. And he thought, whoa. First, he probably thought, oh, I need a new shirt. Second, he thought, wait, maybe I could use these magnetrons to actually cook food, right? And so, hence the microwave was born. I heard that here at Raytheon, they actually have the very first one.
I had one of them.
Oh, really?
And I didn't think it would ever die.
Yeah. It's like the size of a fridge or something, right? Yeah.
Good counter, right?
Right?
25 years. at
Wow.
least, yeah.
I know, they don't build things like that
No,
anymore.
I
It's
have a
like
cheap one now from Sears. and
Yeah.
it's still
a
good.
year or two later and they're
Right,
gone, right?
But it was Raytheon, you're right.
Yep. Yeah, so I need to go over there and get my picture taken. Chocolate bar. But I haven't done that yet. But it's kind of nice. So we love chocolate. Obviously, people love chocolate. Now, why do we like chocolate so much? This looks a lot like my wife after a long day with the kids. You know, I get home and she's like, oh, just drop the chocolate, step away slowly, take the kids, and just leave, right? So why? Well, we like chocolate because it's sweet. And we're genetically programmed to look for things that give us energy, like sugar. But that doesn't explain all of it, right? Because why don't we just crave a 10-pound bag of sugar, right? Sit there with a spoon and just go to town. No, we don't do that. Whereas we might eat a whole box of Godiva chocolates in one sitting. So it has something to do with the sweetness, which also helps to release endorphins, which helps to make us feel good, right? And it also contains magnesium and other essential minerals. Magnesium is important for preventing PMS, which is why certain times women really, really crave chocolate without even knowing it. All right. So why else do we like chocolate? Well, it has something to do with romance, right? This book, Eat Chocolate Naked, and 142 Other Ways to Attract Attention and Spark Romance. It was much more popular than the sequel, which was Cook Bacon Naked, which is a bad idea. So don't try that one. But why do we associate chocolate and romance, right? I mean, you think of chocolate and holidays, you probably think of Valentine's Day, right, that we just had. You know, my wife always says, oh, if you're not going to bring home some chocolate, roses, and preferably diamonds, you probably shouldn't come home on Valentine's Day, right? So, well, what is it? Well, it turns out that chocolate contains tryptophan. Okay? Tryptophan, you've probably heard of this before, right? Okay? So tryptophan helps to produce serotonin, which gives us feelings of ecstasy and elation. Right? It's the same chemical that's pumped out in our brain when we are in love with somebody. Right? We feel that kind of like just that warm love feeling. That's the serotonin coursing through our brains. Now, where else do we hear of tryptophan?
Turkey.
Turkey, right? So every single Thanksgiving meal, my wonderful sister, who has a degree in nutrition, she always sits down after the meal, and everyone starts to doze off. And she says, oh, that's the tryptophan in the turkey that's causing you to become drowsy. And I always go like this, oh, because it's not the tryptophan. Turns out that we just ate a high carbohydrate-rich meal, and now the blood is rushing to our stomach to try to help us digest it. Obviously, we're going to get drowsy, because tryptophan is in a lot of things. It's in ground beef, but when you eat a Wendy's Baconator, you don't suddenly, fall asleep at the wheel and say, oh, it's the tryptophan again, right? Or chocolate, right? I don't eat a chocolate bar and suddenly get extremely sleepy. So so we've got this one chemical, right, tryptophan. But when we also fall in love with someone, we typically also have like a jittery feeling, kind of that excitement of like, oh, I can't wait to see him again. I don't know what time they get off work, and you're excited about it, right? That actually has to do with this phenylethylamine, the PEA. So this is a chemical that's found in chocolate as well. Right? So it could be that when we want someone to fall in love with us, right, we bring them a bunch of chocolate. And then we're hoping that, we'll convince them, like getting these chemicals into their brain, that, oh man, this guy's a real keeper, right? Brings me chocolate. So that's pretty good, right? And then what do we do when we break up with somebody? Yeah, we eat a lot of chocolate, right? So it could be that we're self-medicating, right? Our brains start to crave these same chemicals, and so what do? We turn to the chocolate because we know that it'll, pump those same chemicals into our brains. So kind of interesting. In fact, we should do another magic trick. I need someone to help volunteer. Who wants to help me out? All right, perfect. Okay, so right now, you're thinking of a number between 1 and 5. Is it a 3?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So 1,
Was
2,
I
3.
supposed to tell you?
Yeah, kind of. That's how I do the trick. All right, so we'll turn over 3 cards. Okay. Now think of a number between 5 and 10. 8. No, you're doing it wrong. Oh, just kidding. All right.
Okay,
No, what
eight,
is it?
eight.
No, what?
7.
7? Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. So I'll turn over 7 cards this time. So we've mixed some face up, some face down. So we'll go ahead and get rid of the face up ones because I've seen those. I'll give you the first face down card. You can look at it, show it to everybody else, just don't show it to me. Tell me whenever you're ready. And then you can pass it around or whatever, I don't mind.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so go ahead and put that back on top. Yep, and then we'll just put it back in, right? Now it turns out that this might look like a deck of cards. It's actually a very sophisticated photocopier. Might not know that, right? So, I want you to hold out your hand for me, and what we're going to do is I'll push a few buttons. These things get more and more complex every day, and we're going to try to photocopy your card, okay? Oh, it came out a little dark. Oh.
I can't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
Queen of Hearts,
that
that
is-
was it? Okay,
that was
yeah,
it.
sometimes the toner gets a little,
Yeah, right.
all right, I'll have to adjust it a little bit, right? Okay, we'll try it again, right? Okay. And it came out a little too light that time.
Oh my.
Okay, 1 second. Sometimes you have to shake the cartridge a little bit, all right. Okay, oh, that's a little
Oh,
better.
that looks like
Okay,
one
so
I
that,
had.
yeah, that's much better, right?
Really?
Now, have you seen those new 3D printers?
Yeah.
Those things are amazing, right? So instead of feeding in paper, you feed in like spools of plastic, it melts it, and then if you want like a new pen, right, you program in a pen and it goes and it prints a pen, literally, right? Now that would be amazing if I could like, you know, print like an actual like Queen of Hearts, right? So if you hold out your hand, if I could like go like and then just print
Oh my.
like a tiny Queen of Hearts, right? See, that would be really amazing if I could do that, but I still don't know how to do that, so. All right, awesome, thanks. Okay, so it turns out that if we're missing the Queen of our Hearts, right, well, hopefully we can try to substitute in the chocolate instead and maybe, you know, make up for it. Now, the other thing, and you might read about this in some magazines, there was a big stir about this a while ago, saying that chocolate contained marijuana, right? Heard of this? Or that contain the same chemicals found in marijuana. It's actually not quite true. It actually, chocolate contains a chemical known as anandamide, which is a naturally occurring chemical that's found in our brains. It's what's responsible for runner's high. You heard of people when they, you know, they run marathons and suddenly they feel really good and they keep running. So that's the anandamide talking. But anandamide is the chemical that the active ingredient in marijuana, the THC, that's the one that THC is trying to mimic. So the THC gets into our brains and then it mimics that runner's high, but it gives us the marijuana high. But chocolate actually contains anandamide, right? And so we feel really good. Now, doctors say that you would have to eat about 25 pounds of chocolate in one sitting to get anywhere near the, you know, the experience you get off of like marijuana. So there's really not that much of it in there, so you don't have to worry about it. But just when someone tells you like, oh, you should watch out for it, it's not really true. I did put in a few chemical structures because that's what makes my heart go. Right? Oh, just love that. Poor wife. All right. So, what are some of the health benefits of chocolate? Some of the good things, right? Well, chocolate contains quite a few antioxidants. Heard of antioxidants? These are also in those skincare commercials, right? That says, oh, you know, this tube will help to fight, you know, the, wrinkles and fine lines of aging and fights terrorists and all the other things, right? All in this amazing tube for only like $69.95. So it says it has a lot of antioxidants in it. Well, these are actually very important because our body, every time we breathe, every time we digest food, pretty much any time we're alive, our body is constantly being bombarded with what are known as free radicals. These highly reactive chemicals that will get in there, and they will react with anything they can get their hands onto, right? If it happens to be our DNA, and they react with the DNA, that can cause a mutation, which can then lead to cancer, right? Now, if we have our cells full of antioxidants, well, then that's even better because the antioxidants will grab onto those free radicals, and it neutralizes the free radicals, right? So that's why we're told to eat a lot of fruit, because vitamin C is a very potent antioxidant. Okay? But there are some specific antioxidants in chocolate known as flavanols. So these flavanols are very good antioxidants. They help to combat everything, right? So not only do they act as antioxidants, but they also help to stimulate the production of nitric oxide, which helps to dilate the blood vessels, which helps to reduce blood pressure. In fact, there's an interesting study where they took men with high blood pressure, and they gave one group about 30 grams of chocolate. It's about a third of the bar of chocolate. And they found that after 2 weeks, their blood pressure had gone down. Right? My blood pressure goes down when I eat chocolate, right? I'm like, relax. It could be the nitric oxide. So that's a good sign, right? Because of this, it also helps to lower the bad cholesterol and raise the good cholesterol, the HDL versus the LDL. Helps to prevent plaque buildup in the arteries, and may also have some very mild anti-blood clotting properties, which can help to not only open the blood vessels, but keep blood clots from forming and reducing the risk of stroke. Sounds pretty nice, all from the humble bar of chocolate, right? Now, this is way too small to see, but these are known as the ORAC values, the oxygen radical absorbance capacity. The higher this number is, the more antioxidants there are in this. Here at the top we have black plums. All right? So black plums are chock full of these antioxidants. That's fabulous, right? The problem is you eat too many black plums, then you have other problems. So what's second on the list? Dark chocolate. See, that's pretty good, right? So you can get a lot of health benefits just from the dark chocolate. Also, other things that have very strong colors, like blueberries are high up there, right? Blackberries, raspberries. Artichokes somehow got in there. I don't know, but I like them on my pizza. Right? Let's see, what else do we have? Apples, pecans, cranberries, strawberries, and then down here we have our milk chocolate. So much lower, but it still has some of those health benefits. And then we get like grapefruit juice and grapes and almonds and raisins, which are far lower. So quite a few health benefits just from chocolate. It's not too bad. In fact, I should probably do another magic trick. It's what I do in my chemistry class to keep my students awake, because they start to nod off a little bit. All right. I do need a volunteer, though. Someone that wants to help me out. Okay, perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just start flipping through. Whenever you say stop, I'll stop, and I'll give you a card.
Stop.
Oh, okay. All right. I get overexcited. I'm talking about chocolate. I'm going to leave it right in there, okay? I'm going to go ahead and show it to you ladies here, and then I'm going to try to walk around without tripping over anybody. Okay? And I don't know if everyone can see that. Okay. So we have your card right here. Let's say that your card represents the DNA that's found inside of one of my cells, this deck of cards. So what I'm going to do is, I should have asked. Fire. Okay, just for a second. No one saw that, right? Okay, so that represents the free radicals, right? Free radicals get in there and they can damage our DNA. So what we're going to do is see if we can find your card.
Oh, boy.
Wait a minute.
Oh, boy.
That was yours?
Oh my.
So the Five of Hearts has been totally burnt up, right? This is a huge problem because, well, if that's my DNA, it has caused a lot of damage, right? Okay. So, I like that one.
Is it still warm from the
Yeah, I mean, it smells a little bit like a burnt card or something. The problem is I go through a lot of good cards this way, right? And then I have to buy more decks of cards, and then my wife gets mad at me, Now, we could try this again. So, for instance, if we cut the deck, okay, and then gave you a card, right? So if that was your card, we could go ahead and put that back in, and then see, we could try this again, but this time, oh, that's why I shouldn't play
That
with
wasn't in
hatches,
the cards, right?
Oh, see, it's starting to blister a little bit. Wait, that looks like an 8. It almost looks like a club.
Oh, wow.
So it's like burned on my fingers, right? So your card must have been like an 8 of clubs.
Yes.
Yeah, see, I go through a lot of good fingers that way. So, all right. So hopefully what we're doing when we're eating chocolate is we're damaging those flavanols, right, instead of damaging ourselves. Otherwise, we end up getting burned. All right, so what else? What are some of the other benefits? There was an interesting study in Italy in about 2005. It still needs to be repeated and some more work done on it, but they found that chocolate actually helps to lower our insulin resistance, which can reduce the risk of diabetes. That's not bad. And because it dilates the blood vessels, it improves blood flow, they've actually found that it can improve vision slightly, right? Because you're getting more blood flow to the corneas. And then also, you should eat some chocolate before you go in for a big exam. That's what I tell my students, because it helps to improve the blood flow to the brain, which has been shown to increase the ability to do cognitive tasks. It's not too bad. Right? They've also found that dark chocolate helps to reduce cravings for sweet, salty, and fatty foods. Now my guess is it's because you just ate a bar of chocolate, so you're not going to crave anything else, right? But I don't know. I didn't do the study. All right, so those are some pretty good health benefits, right? Are there any other benefits? Well, chocolate offers natural sun protection, right? You just cover yourself in chocolate and you're not going to... Not really. I was just testing you. No, it turns out that you should still wear sunscreen, but if you regularly eat chocolate, you will not burn as fast as people who don't regularly eat chocolate. Again, because of those antioxidants that get in there and help to prevent the damage from happening. Now again, still wear sunscreen. I turn like lobster red no matter what, so I have to wear a lot of sunscreen. It turns out that it contains a natural cough suppressant known as theobromine. So in case you're feeling a little hoarse. No? Okay. It turns out that the reason I put the horse up there is that the theobromine, that's a natural cough suppressant, is what makes chocolate highly toxic to other animals. Right? So dogs, horses, cats, it's toxic to all of them. Now, dogs are typically the only animal that will get into a bag of chocolate and eat the whole thing, including the bag. Right? Cats will usually just kind of peck at it, and horses aren't really exposed to chocolate a lot. But it's that theobromine. Now, if you buy the newfangled natural cough drops, they'll also contain theobromine typically, which means that you should keep those away from your pets as well, because it's, again, it's highly toxic. Now, personally, I just would rather eat some chocolate than suck on one of those nasty cough drops, but that's just my choice. Because it helps to increase our serotonin production, chocolate can act as an antidepressant, which is pretty nice. And then it contains many essential minerals. We mentioned this, copper, iron, potassium, magnesium, all of these different benefits, all in some chocolate. All right. So those are some really nice things, right? But what about the dark side of dark chocolate, right? There has to be some problems with this, because otherwise people are just going to go home and gorge themselves on chocolate and say, oh, Mike told me I could because it's healthy, right? It's like broccoli, and you're eating tons of it. No, there are some problems with it, right? One of the problems is that it contains, obviously calories, right? So you can gain weight anytime you're adding more calories to your diet. There are 3 types of fat that are found in chocolate. The first one is oleic acid. Oleic acid is the same one that's found in olive oil, right? So this is actually a healthy monounsaturated fat. So this is why our doctors are always telling us to cook with olive oil, because it's healthier, right? You should just cook with chocolate. Stearic acid, this is a saturated fat. This is also found in chocolate, but this one actually has a neutral effect on cholesterol levels. So we have one that's healthy, one that's neutral, and then one that's bad, right? The palmitic acid, this is the nasty one that raises your cholesterol and heart disease risk. So that means, though, that if you're choosing a dessert, chocolate's actually a relatively healthy choice, right? It's much better to eat something like this than, I don't know, like a pound of bacon or something. Right? Because then you're just getting the unhealthy fats, whereas this way, at least you're getting some of the healthy ones as well. Now, what are some tips then, right? Because obviously we have to balance these things. We have some of the health benefits, and we have some of the not so healthy benefits, or drawbacks, I guess. Well, it turns out that you should obviously eat everything in moderation, right? One of these Lindt bars is 100 grams. Some of the studies actually had people eating 100 grams of chocolate in a day. That's a lot of chocolate, right? Most of the studies, though, focused on about 30 grams, which again is about a third of one of these bars. So these ones are broken up into, you know, some pretty large squares. So personally, I eat about 2 squares of this chocolate every day, right? And if it's been a hard day, I eat maybe 1 or 2 more. I don't know, depends, right? Now, what I do is I like to go up to the Lindt outlet up in Stratham, New Hampshire. You can get these for sometimes about $1 a bar, and they'll buy like $100 worth, and then they'll hide it in the closet. And then after I put the kids in bed, then my wife and I sit there and snuggle up and read a book or something and eat a little chocolate, right? So you're getting all the benefits without adding a whole bunch of extra calories. Now, the other thing is you should probably make it kind of special, right? Because nowadays, you know, chocolate is cheap, right? It comes in like paper boxes. Back in the day, I have some older ones. So these are some chocolate boxes from the 1930s, right? So this was something much more special, right? You'd give this to someone like, oh, you know, this is a sign of my affection, right? Whitman's made this really nice one in about 32 or 35. It's like a little treasure chest, right? Nowadays, it's like this paper box, and you throw it away. Whereas this is something that you would want to keep around. Okay? So I would recommend try to make it something special, right? You know, if you like Ghirardelli's chocolates, well, then get Ghirardelli's. Or if you like Godiva, get Godiva. But get the kind of chocolate that you really like, so that when you do eat it, it's like, oh, this is something special, right? Because I'd much rather eat, you know, a few squares of like a nice Lindt bar. They have this black currant one, or sea salt one that's really good. Instead of eating like a whole bag of Hershey Kisses, because I'm not a big fan of Hershey Kisses, right? So to me, I would rather eat a little bit of good stuff rather than a lot of the not so good stuff, which also helps my waistline, right? Because I'm trying to, you know, balance those calories by not eating too many. Okay, what else? Well, obviously, if you're going for just the health benefits, go for dark chocolate, or the darker the better, right? Now, how do you know how dark something is? Well, some of the chocolate bars will actually tell you on the back. This will say 47% minimum cocoa solids. Some of them will tell you on the front, right? Like a 72% twilight dark chocolate. Okay, I can't go above about 70%. That's about the limit for me. Then it starts to taste like baking cocoa, like it's kind of like chalky, like bitter flavor. Some people really like it. But if you like milk chocolate, go with milk chocolate, right? You might as well go with something you enjoy. But maybe try going for something, you know, trying something with a little extra cocoa in it, right? Up the percentage to maybe 30% or 40%. And over time, you'll probably find that you enjoy it. I mean, I grew up hating dark chocolate. I met my wife, and her mother's from Germany, and my wife got me hooked on dark chocolate because she likes the nice Swiss and Belgian chocolate, and oh, it's fabulous, right? But it took some time to kind of adapt to it. Now, also try to avoid some of those fillers, right? If you think, oh, I need a healthy snack, I'm going to go for a Snickers bar. No, probably not, right? Because it's just a thin layer of kind of pseudo chocolate, and then you have a whole bunch of fillers, the caramel and the nougat and things like that. They add a lot of calories without adding any health benefits. So what if you don't want just pure chocolate, though? What if you get bored with it? Well, you can send it to me, and I'll take care of it. Well, what can you do instead? Well, you could, I don't know, go for fruit, right? I mean, we know that things like strawberries and raspberries have a lot of antioxidants in it as well. So, okay, yeah, you could get a lot of sugar in there, right? But you could dip it in there. Or you could go for flavored chocolate, right? Go for like a mint flavored, or a chili flavored, or an intense orange flavor, because then you're adding the flavors without adding a lot of the other problems. If you're not allergic to nuts, nuts are a pretty good choice because our doctors are typically telling us to eat more almonds and things like that. So you could get almond clusters or something that are covered in chocolate. Okay, but again, go for what you enjoy, because that's what's going to make it an enjoyable treat. You don't want to be like taking your cod liver oil and now I have to choke down this bar of chocolate. Oh, and it's horrible. Also, another interesting thing is try to avoid milk when you're eating your chocolate, which seems counterintuitive. Growing up, my mom would make chocolate chip cookies or double fudge brownies or something, and you'd sit there with a big glass of milk and you'd eat it after school, right? But it turns out that if you're drinking a large glass of milk while you're eating your chocolate, it actually slows the absorption of those flavanols, those antioxidants, into your bloodstream. And so you're eating the chocolate, but you're not absorbing all of those healthy things, right? Which is kind of tough. Maybe we should finish with one more magic trick. This one involves some money. All right. Anyone want to help me out? You want to help me out?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. All right, so this is really easy. I've got my lunch money here, so I've got a 1 and a 5, right? So I'm going to go ahead and hand you a 5.
Okay.
Have you ever done origami?
No, my son-in-law.
Okay, we'll do a very simple origami. I want you to take it and fold it in half. Fold it in half again. And fold it in half one more time. See, that's a pretty amazing magic trick, right?
Not origami, I know.
No, so what we have now is we have a 1 and a 5, right?
Right.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put these into your hand, okay?
Okay.
And then I'm going to pull one of these out, okay?
Okay.
Which one do you think I just pulled out, the 1 or the 5?
Oh,
See if you're psychic like you're
I
CA.
wasn't watching you. I was
Okay, that's okay. The 1 or the 5, 50-50
One.
chance. Oh, no, I took out the 5, right? So,
Okay.
but the thing is let's say that you probably didn't drink a lot of milk today, right?
I don't think
So that's pretty good. So what we can do is, why don't we just do this? We'll do a little fist bump, and then that means if you open your hands, you should have absorbed the 5. So you open it up. You got the 5, right? Which means I just absorbed the 1. And so that's pretty good, right?
That's,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, it's only because you weren't drinking milk. Otherwise, it wouldn't have worked.
Oh.
Because milk slows the absorption of $5 bills, as well as those flavanols. Okay.
I'll take
All
your
right.
word for it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to give you a quiz because I'm a teacher. That's what I do, right? So we didn't actually talk about a lot of these, but that's okay because that's what I like to do to my students. I make them cry like, what? You didn't tell us about this. So, true or false? Chocolate's high in caffeine. A lot of people think this is true. It turns out that this is false. Okay? Chocolate's actually very, very low in caffeine, if it has any at all. But it is full of theobromine, which happens to look almost chemically identical to caffeine. It's like the chemical cousin. So when people say it contains a lot of caffeine, they actually mean theobromine, which is what makes it toxic to animals, right? But caffeine, you know how you drink, a cup of coffee or something and you kind of spike and then you crash? Okay, so that's what caffeine does. Theobromine actually gives you more of a low level kind of buzz or energy, which is why some people can't drink coffee before bed, but they can eat some chocolate before bed and still be able to sleep, right? Because it has a different effect on you. So let's see. What about this one? Chocolate causes acne. I'm worried about this. I'm in my 30s and I still get breakouts. Okay, so is it the chocolate? No, it's also false. I mean, geeks like me have been studying this for about 50 years, and they have found absolutely no link between diet and acne, right? It's mostly due to hormone levels, right? All right, so that way when I break out, I can go and console myself by eating a lot of chocolate. All right, what about this one? Chocolate gives you migraines. Well, it turns out that there are a few people who are allergic, right? But the vast majority of people, it doesn't cause migraines. In fact, there's some research that shows that because it helps to open up the blood vessels, it can actually help to reduce migraines. Right? So it's kind of nice. In fact, that's what my wife says, right? Oh, I've got this massive migraine. I need you to give me like 3 bars of chocolate, take the kids somewhere. And I'm like, oh, yes, honey. And she's like, right? What about this one? Chocolate causes hyperactivity. No. This one doesn't. Yeah, this one's not true either. In fact, there's a really interesting study where they took a group of parents and a group of kids, right? And they put the kids behind a two-way mirror, and then they gave each of the parents a questionnaire to see how hyper their kid was that day, right? And so the parents are watching their kids, bouncing off the walls. And half of the parents were told that they had given their kids some, candy, right? And the other half were told, no, we gave them a glass of water, and that was it. And sure enough, those parents that were told that their kids had been given candy rated their kids much higher on the hyperactivity scale. Like, oh, look at that. Little Jimmy's bouncing off the walls again. Turns out little Jimmy's always bouncing off the walls. It's just that we have this preconceived notion that our kids get hyper when they eat a lot of candy. And in the study, they hadn't given anything to any of the kids, right? But without fail, the parents that were told, oh, yep, they were given candy, thought their kids were much more hyper. They believe that it's typically due to the environment that the kids are in when they eat the candy, right? You think about it, kids eat a lot of candy at parties, right? So, well, they have cake and balloons and clowns chasing them around. Of course they're going to be excited. Or what about, holidays? Well, if the Easter Bunny's coming, right? Or, Santa Claus. Well, of course the kids are going to be overexcited. And then there is one caveat here that there is some research that is starting to link those artificial colors with things like attention deficit disorder and ADHD. So it may be that it's the colorful candy coating and not the candy inside that's actually causing the hyperactivity. So it's not a bad idea to avoid some of those colors. All right, not too bad. You passed the exam. All right, so I believe we do have some chocolate samples here on your tables that you can sample. Okay, you've already been sampling. That's good. That's good. Now, I will tell you that if you're one of the foodies, right, like to watch Food Network and things like that, the gourmets are always telling you to taste the chocolate like this, right? That you should indulge all of your senses. I don't personally do this, I just eat the chocolate. But if you want to really indulge all of your senses, this is what they recommend, is to make sure it's at room temperature. How many of you put your chocolate in the freezer?
I have on occasion.
Yeah, I do it sometimes to keep it from melting in the summertime, right? It turns out that it tastes better, typically, if you at least let it warm up to room temperature before you eat it, right? Now, have you ever noticed that you get kind of like this white stuff on it if you've frozen it for too long? Some people think it's like freezer burn, but it's not. Yeah, it's bloom, exactly. So as you cool down the temperature, the sugar will actually crystallize out of the chocolate bar. So it's just the sugar crystals. And it doesn't affect, Yeah, exactly. I mean, some people will say, oh, it's blooming, oh, it's no good, right? Well, it's the same, it's still sugar, right? But unfortunately, there's no way to get it back into the chocolate without melting it down and redoing the entire process. But it's perfectly healthy, or just as healthy to eat it when it's blooming than any other time, right? It's the same type of thing. Then you should focus and clear your palates, and you should look at the chocolate and admire it, right? On the back of the chocolate bars, they always have this guy in a funny hat, and he's like gazing at the chocolate lovingly, right? By then, I'd have already eaten the chocolate. You should listen to it as you break it, right? And then you should, rub it and sense the delicate aroma of it, things like that. Again, I would be licking my fingers because it's all over my fingers now. And the one thing I do agree with is to really, enjoy it in your mouth, right? If you're busy watching TV or driving or something, you're going to eat the whole bar and you won't even notice that you've eaten anything, right? And then you still want more. Whereas if you're sitting there relaxing and you eat the chocolate slowly, then it's signaling to your brain that, hey, this is my time, you're enjoying it, but then you don't want as much later on, right? So I do recommend that you kind of, take the time to enjoy it. But other than that, I don't really do all of these things. But you can if you want. Nothing wrong with it. All right, so that's it for me. Do you have any questions?
I do.
Sure.
This is a crazy one. The cocoa butter for our belly when we're pregnant doesn't make any stretch marks. What is that?
Oh, if it reduces the...
Yeah, you rub your belly with
Yeah.
cocoa butter.
Yeah, my wife's worried about this. I mean, we have 3 lovely little kids. And so she was always using this cocoa butter stuff. I actually don't know. I have no idea whether it affects anything. I mean, I know that it helps to moisturize it, but other than that...
There's cocoa in it, is what I mean.
Well, it doesn't have cocoa. It's actually, when they take the beans, they'll press the fat out, so it's just the fat. So that's what's causing it to
That's why I wondered what it
moisturize.
was, because it's called cocoa butter.
Exactly.
But it works.
But it's the same stuff that you find in white chocolate. So if
Okay.
you look at white chocolate, it'll say cocoa butter. In fact, it's in any chocolate. They'll take it out, and then during the process of making the chocolate, they'll actually put the cocoa butter back into it.
Okay.
And so that's why, it'll say sugar, chocolate, cocoa butter, milk fat.
Yeah.
But if you get the cheap stuff, they won't put the cocoa butter back in because it's expensive.
Okay.
They'll typically just put in like partially hydrogenated vegetable oil or something like that, right?
Vegetable
So,
oil, hydrogenated.
yeah, and that's the stuff that you should avoid because as we mentioned with the different fats, some of the fats are actually healthy. The oleic acid and the stearic acid isn't bad for you, but hydrogenated vegetable oil is bad for you. And so that's why typically the more expensive brands will have a little bit more of the real stuff in it, right? Whereas the cheap stuff, they'll put in whatever filler they can just to drive down the price a little bit.
Were you recently on Channel 5 and you were talking about that specific issue, to eat the more expensive chocolate because that has more of the...
Oh, no, I did hear about that, but it wasn't me, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You should write to the station and say, this is Mike Cross guy. Not only will he tell you about the chocolate, he'll do magic tricks. No, there was an article in the Boston Globe that I was in I was right around Valentine's Day. But yeah, I haven't been on TV yet, so. Oh yeah. Now's my chance. But yeah, I mean, it's very true that people will actually, if you do a taste test, most people will actually choose the cheaper chocolate because they'll have more sugar in it. And so people like the sweet stuff, right? But if you're going for the health benefits, then yeah, typically you can go for the more expensive, but not always. That's the thing, is sometimes the more expensive brands will actually cut out some of that, put in the cheap stuff, knowing that they've got a strong
Well,
fan
he said
base.
the same thing about taking a few squares of, like the Lindt, and eating the dark chocolate, and that's what he had each
Right.
day.
Oh,
And,
nice.
oh, this has to be, but yeah.
Yep. No, he's just copying me. You must have seen my presentation at some point. Go ahead.
Yesterday's Globe had a very big article, I don't know if you saw it.
I haven't, no.
That, I think it's Brigham and Women's, one of the hospitals in Boston, they're doing a $20 million study
Whoa.
on chocolate and how it affects heart patients.
Interesting.
However, Mars is underwriting it.
Oh, yeah.
So some people said when industry underwrites it, they always come out with favorable results.
Yeah.
But the hospital says if industry doesn't underwrite, they haven't
No
got
one's
that kind of
going
money.
Yeah. I know that's the problem with science today, is that you have to go with the corporations because they're the only ones that give you money. I mean, it used to be that like the National Science Foundation would fund 20% of the grants that were submitted to them. Now it's down to like 3 or 7% or something. There's just no money in it, and so you have to go to outside sources. But at the same time, if the hospital comes back and says, "Oh, look, chocolate's horrible for you," do you think Mars is really going to be happy with that, or will they say, "No, it's a bad idea"? Right? So I totally agree. It's a tough one, but there's no real alternative. But yeah, I'll have to check it out.
You should check out Cadbury's too. Cadbury's chocolate.
Uh-huh.
The one in this country is not the same as the one in England.
Oh, really?
They're completely different.
That I didn't know.
Because the one here has been bought by Hershey
Oh, okay.
and erected.
Oh,
So if you go to the English shop and buy the English Cadbury's,
yeah.
the difference is amazing.
Huh, I'll have to try it out.
Yeah.
Everything's better across the pond.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
It is.
No, it's true. I mean, a lot of these companies are just gobbling each other up. Did you know that Ghirardelli's chocolate is owned by Lindt? I didn't know that until a couple weeks ago. Yeah, but back in like '98, I think, Lindt and Sprugli, I think is the company, they bought out Ghirardelli's. And in fact, so Ghirardelli's is an American company, right? It's in San Francisco. It turns out they don't have any room to expand over there in San Francisco. And so the national headquarters here in Stratham, where they have the Lindt factory, is actually opening up an entire new production line just for the Ghirardelli's chocolate. And so they'll be producing it just on that one line because they are still different recipes. And so they have to produce it, but it's all owned by the same company. Yeah. And so yeah, Hershey and Nestle and different companies are buying up all the little
Yeah, they
ones.
have. They're totally different.
Yeah. That's interesting. I'll have to go and
Yeah,
do some research for
Try
my
the
next
Dark
presentation.
Royal,
Yeah?
and it's completely different than the one you get. It's made by Hershey.
Sure.
Margaret, tell them about Smarties.
Huh?
Tell them about Smarties.
What about
Tell them the difference between Smarties and M&M's.
Oh yeah, they're totally different.
Oh, really?
They're totally different. If you buy the English Smarties, they look like M&M's, but
Okay.
they're not the same at all.
Oh, that's funny.
They're better, the Smarties are better.
No, she's wrong about that.
You don't like them?
She's wrong about that. M&M's are better.
I'll have to have like a taste test or something. Maybe it's what we're used to, right? We just.
But they're not the same. They're just not the same.
This money
All right, but that's
That's what they say, Smarties.
yeah, but that's what we have in America. But Smarties over in Europe would be like M&Ms over here. All right. Any other questions for me?
But if you go to Switzerland, it's a totally different chocolate.
Right.
It's just not the same.
Yeah. Very true. All right. Well, thank you so much. Enjoy the chocolate, and let me know if you have any questions.